Hi, and welcome to another episode of Paint With Me. Today I thought I'd show how to do a painted wreath that you can put a word in the middle of. I showed a picture of this on my Instagram. Some people asked me to do a little tutorial. You can start with a circle done in pencil if you want, but I didn't think that that was necessary. So the tools I'm using a water brush, a brush pen. This is a Tombow brush pen, and a white gel pen. This is a UniBall Signo. I have my watercolors all ready. These are from Greenleaf and Blueberry. Okay, so to get started, I'm just going to start with a circle of green. Again, I'm not starting with a circle template or anything like that. I'm just going to rough a circle. Again, you can start with a pencil circle if you need to. I'm just going to start here with some green. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now for this, you want to be careful. You don't want too much water, especially on a Hobonichi. You want to think of this as hot press paper. Okay, so too much water, you're going to get a lot of beading and wrinkling, so you want to keep it kind of light with the water. So just a rough circle outline and some green. So now I'm going to move to some darker green. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to be putting a lot over top of this, so just a rough estimation of a circle. Again, we don't want to use too much water. See how much the paper is wrinkling already. So now we want it to dry a little bit. You can use some, I've seen people use a heat gun. I don't have one, so we're just going to go ahead and start in with our leaves. So here, it's going to do a ring of leaves all around the outside, kind of evenly spaced. This is easier to do if you turn the page. Now I'm not going to do that. Again, you want to be careful with your water. See how it's kind of beading up? If you use too much, it really kind of beads up because of the paper. So I do the outside ones and then I do the inside ones. This is what I call the ugly phase. It's not very pretty at this point. It kind of just looks like a spiky crown of thorns almost. And one thing to keep in mind, I try to keep all the leaves kind of pointing in the same direction. Mine are all going counterclockwise. I have some pooling, so I'm going to go back and try to smooth some of that out. Okay, so let's add some flowers. Now, my theme was kind of fall, and it was very primary colors. So I did kind of like a red, yellow, and blue. So let's do that again. So I'm going to add some red flowers next. So I'm going to get into some red. Let's do that again. So I'll add some red flowers. Now the important thing here is to kind of randomize it. You don't want to have your flowers too evenly spaced. So this is hard. You don't want to have them too regular around. You want to kind of randomize it. And this is hard for people who are very analytical. You want to kind of break that habit of kind of forcing yourself to randomize this. You really want to try to surprise yourself and put them kind of at random places instead of predisposed or regular spots. So you kind of close your eyes and pick where to put them instead. It's a little difficult. It's more difficult than you think it is. So that looks pretty good. Distributed, but not too evenly distributed. So let's do some blue flowers next. So again, this is all about just kind of popping them down wherever you feel like it and trying not to be too regular. Just kind of putting them down wherever feels right. And at this point, everything's really wide open, so you can just put them down kind of wherever you want to. Don't be afraid to put them really close to other elements. So put them close to leaves, put them close to other flowers, put them close to each other. So now I'm going to add some bigger purple flowers. One thing to keep in mind is you want to try to keep your hand out of the other things that you've done. So try not to rest your hand on the page. This is a little tricky and takes some practice. Okay. So now let's lighten things up and do some yellow. I did some really bright yellow poofs on my other one and I really like that. So let's add some of those in here. Don't know what these are supposed to be, but I really like them. They're just bright poofs color that brightened up the whole wreath. I'm gonna add those in again. Took up a lot of space and they really brightened it up. For this, my brush is pretty dry because I want those individual brush strokes to stay kind of individualized. I don't want them to blend together too much. Some littler ones in too. Just want to take up a lot of space and fill in too. Let's add a little bit of more bright yellow in there too. Let's add some little orange star flowers in here. That'll help warm things up too. Again, my palette is very autumnal. Your wreath might be a completely different color palette, and that's totally fine. Trying to fill in some holes. Okay, so at this point we're pretty much done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of brown just to kind of tie it together around this inner circle. This will be kind of like a branch or inner circle of the wreath, and this just kind of ties it all together. I do this afterwards so that I can just kind of weave it in between all the flowers that we've done. If you're doing a spring wreath, you might not want to add this step. You might want to just leave it green. And I might want to deepen those greens a little bit too. Now I'm going to go back and add a little bit of extra color on top, some reds and greens just to brighten up some of the other colors. Add a little more punch to some of the petals and leaves. The thing about watercolors, if I tried to do this before those under layers were dry, the watercolor would actually, the brush would lift the color instead of adding another layer. So what you need to do with watercolors is you need to let the underlayer dry completely first before you try to layer on more color. So now that the layer underneath is dry, I can go back and add a little bit more color on top. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my white gel pen to add some highlights and details. I admit I'm a little in love with my white gel pen, so I tend to go a little overboard with it. So I'm going to add some centers to my flowers. Oh, that one's still a little wet, so can't do that one yet. So I'm going to add some highlights to my leaves. Okay, this is totally unnecessary. I'm just a little obsessed with the white gel pen. Ah, and I just put my hand in that wet flower. And it's still wet, and now I feel like I ruined it. Now I'm just spreading it and making it worse. Just scoop up the paint and no, I know that's not gonna work. Let me just dab it up. I'll have to put more paint on it later once it's dry. We'll add some red now, and we'll have to add a little bit more later. Alright, so in my other illustration I added some blue dots around. So let me do that here too. And again, these are just random. I don't know what they're supposed to be. They're not water droplets or anything, they're just pretty dots. Alright, so these are really great to encircle like a word or a name or something like that. So you can put in somebody's name or word. Oh, that flower is still not dry. So I used my word of the year. So my word of the year is bloom. So that's the word that I put in the middle. But I've seen other people put in like a name or something like that. If you're making a decoration for somebody, that's really a nice thing to do. But I'm just going to use the same word that I used in my illustration the other day. So I'm going to write the word bloom again. And then because I'm not very good at brush lettering yet, I need to clean it up a little bit. Try another layer of flour. And then when it dries, I'll put a little white dot in the middle. And we'll call it done. And there we are. Thank you for joining me for another Paint With Me session.